And since we are discussing economic turmoil, how could I not talk about Sri Lanka? The situation there is not getting any better. Last week, Sri Lanka banned all fuel sales, hoping to get new shipments. A week on, no fuel shipments are in sight. The fuel stocks have all but dried up. Colombo is now asking the world for help. It's in talks with Russia for a fuel credit line. It's also seeking fuel shipments from India. Are its efforts bearing fruit? Here's a detailed report.
Sri Lanka is on the edge. Its fuel supplies are running dry. The stocks have hit rock bottom. This is what's left in the reserves. 12,000 tons of diesel, 4,000 tons of petrol. This may sound like a lot, but it's not sufficient even for a day. To make things worse, no fresh fuel shipments are in sight. The next delivery will take more than a week. Why can't Sri Lanka fast-track this process? Because it has no money left. The country needs $587 million to schedule shipments. Sri Lanka's central bank can only supply $125 million. Why? Because it also has to deal with inflation.
Inflation expectation, the forecast that we are seeing might go up to even close to 70%. So here the major concern from the central bank point of view, the first priority is to address inflation and inflation expectations going forward and bring down the inflation to at least to a reasonable level as soon as possible. Sooner the better.
Sri Lanka's troubles don't end there. The country also has debts to pay. Colombo owes $800 million to at least 7 suppliers for fuel purchases. It's a sad state of affairs. What is Sri Lanka doing to fix it? It's asking the world for help. On Wednesday, Sri Lanka reached out to Russia. Its president dialed Vladimir Putin, seeking urgent help. The two are said to have discussed a credit line for fuel imports to Sri Lanka. Last we checked, Russia had not given any guarantees. To convince the Russians, a team of Lankan ministers will visit Moscow next week. Sri Lanka has also reached out to India. New Delhi has already done a lot. Earlier this year, India extended a $500 million credit line as part of a $3.5 billion assistance package. Sri Lanka is now hoping for another $500 million of a credit line from India for fuel purchases. New Delhi isn't too thrilled with the request. It has asked Colombo to settle its dues first and pay in advance for any future supply of fuel. Reports say at least 4 Indian fuel shipments were expected to reach Sri Lanka. They've now been put on hold as India awaits an advance payment. Where does this leave Sri Lanka? In the midst of more uncertainty, more political turmoil and more unrest. It's been more than 8 days since fuel sales were banned. People can't buy petrol and diesel. Their frustration is at a point of no return. They've launched what they're calling the final push to topple the government. There's no saying how this movement will end.
WION now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.